Hey everybody, welcome to this week's edition of the Digital Marketing Excellence Show. I'm Eric Enge, CEO of Stone Temple Consulting. I'm here today with one of my faves out there in the social media world, Peg Fitzpatrick. Say hi, Peg.
Hello, Eric and everybody. I'm so excited to be on the show. Eric and I had so much fun at a conference recently, so this was kind of, we're continuing our conversation where I won't be shushing Eric.
Oh, yes.
Maybe.
She was shushing me because I was loud. We were sitting watching somebody present and whispering back and forth, except I'm not really good at the whispering thing. So that's the problem. Oh, how did we get somebody in the video call?
Not sure. I always love when that happens.
So hopefully, John, you'll step out momentarily. I don't know. You're not really supposed to be in the video call, so maybe I shared the wrong link a second. Oh, I did. Okay, I'm going to delete that. My bad. Little show mismanagement there. So I got to reshare the YouTube link. Sorry, everybody, for the little delay. So we are going to talk about building relationships in social media. And, fundamentally, it's a pretty simple topic, right? But on the surface, I think where it gets a little more complicated is when you dig into the mechanics of it. And, I think one of the things that you really need to think about is, how do I get started, right? What are the right places to, where am I going to find the people? What network am I even going to be on? And so there's a lot to think about. It's not just you could just start out trying to do things, but it doesn't make a lot of sense if you start out in the wrong place. Now, does it?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, networking is one of those topics where, honestly, a lot of it seems like common sense, and some of it is common sense, just like most things in the world. But it's like the art of a great conversation. There's nuances to it to make it great. And it's the same with networking. Where you choose to network, who you choose to network with, what you say when you're out there in the world are all things that build your online presence. And it's important because every little layer that you're building creates what people see of you when you're not there, which is most of the time when they're looking at your stuff, when they're looking at your profile, when they're looking at your Google Plus posts. You're not standing next to them saying, "This is what I thought about that. This is why I chose that." They're seeing it, and so every little brick that you're building is important. So common sense is an important part of that, but there's also some skill and some expertise and some great ways that you can do things and some pitfalls to avoid as well.
No, absolutely. So, one of the things I think about, though, is when I start trying to help a client, even before I get into the building the relationships part, the first thing I try to figure out is where their audience is and what platform they should be on.
Exactly.
Should they be on? Should their main focus be Twitter? Should their main focus be Facebook? Should their main focus be Google Plus? Really trying to work that out, because I think it doesn't do you any good to build a great relationship, but it's really not the place where your audience is.
Right. The big surprise for me, the most recent one that came out that I just didn't think was going to be like a viable marketing platform is Snapchat, and brands are on there doing awesome stuff. I'm like, wow, so sometimes you can be surprised at what can work and what, like Ello's super popular. I don't really see anything happening there yet, though. You can't put links. It's really hard to have conversations. So would you recommend a client to go on Ello to network? And probably not at this point, unless they like email. But yeah, that's one of the things, is knowing the different ways to communicate and network on each different platform. That is, Google Plus has its own way. Google Plus communities are, brilliant to me, is I think probably to you as well. One of the most brilliant places on anywhere on social media to connect with people who have the same passions and interests that you do. They're tied up into a community subject matter, and you can really dig deep with there, and people or go into more general groups. So you can choose any type of conversation that you want, and you can take the networking just in the community, or you can go, then you go to their profile and find that, go look and find other things about them. So Google Plus communities to me are the gold on Google Plus as far as really strong networking. What do you think on Google Plus is your favorite way to like network with people?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do it. I mean, Google Plus is one of the best long-form discussion platforms out there. It's really kind of naturally built around that, so you get much deeper context. And I think that's one of the things that makes the community so powerful. If you can go start a really good discussion in a community and get a lot of engagement and interaction and the like, that's a great way to get a lot of visibility in a hurry. And it's kind of interesting because it was highlighted by Dave Besbris in his recent interview. I think it was from him that was highlighting the power of the Google Plus communities, which was particularly interesting. So I find that a great place to get things started.
Yeah, and the thing to think about there too, as with on your personal profile, is that everybody sees what you're talking about. So again, you want to make sure that you're directly. One thing that people don't think about a lot is you're directly networking. Say Eric and I are having a conversation, but a lot of people I think there's a really large percentage of lurkers that never comment and that you don't know that are even reading it. So you could have a private joke with someone, and maybe the context isn't there for someone else when they read it later. So you always have to watch your tone, and sarcasm is a tough one on social media. Like, I love sarcasm and irony as much as the next person, but sometimes it doesn't always play off as well. Tweets are especially hard for that because you have 140 characters and you got to like squeeze it all in there, and then sometimes put that hashtag on there so you can get that it's like a joke, or like, did you mean that? Were you serious? Is that a joke? But you and I might know that's a joke because, I don't know. So anyway, the tone of what you say is important as well as what you're saying in networking.
Yep, totally. Hey, just going to pull in a quick comment from Elaine Lindsay because it just came up. As LO is no ads, I don't see it as a viable platform at this point. Actually, Elaine, they did disclose how they plan to make money. The mode basically is that they plan to upsell services to users as a model instead of running ads. We haven't seen what that upsell will look like just yet. But
I always say I wish Facebook would do that. Like, Facebook charged me $5 or $10 a month for your service, and then don't show me all the ads. But so far they haven't asked for my opinion, so. The reality of it is everything in life can't be free. We want everything in social media to be free, and Google, we get Google ads everywhere in the world. We don't get them on Google Plus in our news feed, but we see plenty of Google ads other places that pay for it. It's like, I don't know. I mean, they have to pay for Google. They have to pay for their campus and their employees, and the same with Facebook. So everybody needs a business model, including Eric and I. We need a business model too. We have to pay the rent and turn the lights on. So sometimes you get an advertisement.
Yes, indeed. And for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to run an advertisement. No, never mind. I'm not going to do that. So, all right. So let's say you're starting to get engaged somewhere. How do you identify relationships that are potentially important to you?
That's a good question. I guess I'm probably not. I'm not strategic that way. I think one of the things that I did when I first started out in social media was I started a book club on Twitter. I don't know if you know about that, Eric. That was one of the first things that I did. I loved Twitter, and I loved Twitter chats when they were super hot and popular. And I was learning how to use Twitter. And I thought, well, I want to do my own Twitter chat because I wanted to host it. So I started a book club because I love to read. I have books everywhere, which you can't really, they're not all there. They're everywhere in my office. I love books. I love reading. So I thought it would be great to connect with other people who read. And it's a little bit more of a challenge to connect with like-minded people on Twitter. A Twitter chat is the best place to do that. You're using a hashtag. Everybody can see your conversations. So through book club, I you know, it turned out to be 100% different than my intention was that it would be a true book club where, you know, I would pick X book, everyone would read it, we'd get together and talk about it a month later with questions, but what it turned into was an interview show because that's what people wanted. People didn't really want to read the book. They wanted me to read the book, give them the highlights, and interview the author. And it turned out to be really fun. I met lots of awesome people. Guy Kawasaki was my first guest on my show, and that turned into an amazing long-term relationship, you know, where we work together now, like I think it's like 3 years later or something like that. So that wasn't necessarily my intent for that. My intent was like to create a community book club kind of thing, and what it turned into was networking with lots of great authors. And some of them I've worked with on other projects. Some of them I would only do the book club and then not really talk to them much afterwards. So there's all different kinds of ways that things can evolve. So for me, that was like that was an interest area for me. So I chose writers, readers. You know, the readers were my audience, and the authors were the people that I helped promote. And that, you know, worked out really well because I wasn't really asking anything of them. I promoted the book show, you know, the book club. I promoted the chat. I did the questions. It was pretty low friction for them. I mean, sometimes I got books from the authors, and I developed relationships with publishers. So it was a really interesting like way that networking evolved and helped grow my whole like online presence. So I didn't necessarily target any specific people other than books that I was interested in. So that's kind of my thing, is like I just kind of follow what I'm interested in, what I'm passionate about. How do you do it?
Well, no, that's a form of strategy, right? I mean,
Yeah.
It's kind of a self-selection kind of thing where you go out and you express your passion and you get engaged and start doing things. And the dynamics worked for you because people gravitated towards that, and obviously it's going to be people of like interest, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that could be a very effective way to meet people. It sort of presumes that you have that you're able to build an audience out of expressing that interest. You can, of course, do that by being early on a platform.
Mm-hmm.
One way to do it. Or jumping in communities that are already on that topic area.
Right.
And then getting in there and adding a lot of value. And then as you do that, people of like minds will start to connect with you. And as Hart GA has just popped in here with a comment, to some degree, it's often the case that the best connections are really accidental.
Yeah, that's true. You know, sometimes you just do have that like connection with someone. It's kind of like a not attraction. What's the word I'm thinking of? You know, where you just have, yeah, you have good synergy or like a good connection, and it's just, you know, it builds from there. You think they're funny, you think they're smart, whatever, you know, they have great posts, you know, whatever things, you know, draw you to that person. Yeah, relationships build and grow. So one thing about networking that I think people kind of a kind of pitfall that comes up is that some people really try to push relationships with people that they perceive to be influencers, and they expect that that's going to like automatically give them a relationship with this person when they probably have a lot of people coming at them and maybe different thresholds. So I never have like intentions for connecting with someone. Usually when I connect with people, I'm telling them that I like something that they did. Like especially when I was a new blogger, I used to reach out to people all the time and tell them how much I liked their content, or I liked a specific blog post, or I would just share it and, you know, make sure that I mentioned them on there. Just being a regular social person, it just translates into how I do things online. And, you know, I appreciate a lot when people read something of mine and say, you know, I liked that, that inspired me, that was interesting, I learned something. Those are all things that make me happy. As a writer, like, I'm like, yay, if I inspire someone else, that makes me really happy and inspires me to do more, because then I know that I reached someone.
Yeah, no, totally, and I do think you're right. I think there is a role for and a way that you can go about identifying people that would be great to have relationships with, and start reading their stuff start interacting on their stuff, adding value to those conversations.
Definitely.
Not all those things are going to work, right? Some of those people are, because there's enough people who, have large followings that you might call them influencers that are largely just in broadcast mode and not really looking to engage, and that's certainly part of our landscape.
Well, here's the thing, Eric. It does get harder the more followers you have. You can't engage with every single person every day. It's very, very hard. Like, I try to respond to everything on Twitter, and I probably miss it at this point because it's not my, sorry Twitter, but it's not my favorite passion anymore. It was for a long time. I do try to respond to everything there, but I might miss things. Sometimes it just gets to the point where you have to do the best you can. And yes, there are some people who really don't engage anymore, which is, I think that social media evolves and changes for people, depending on what their social platforms are. So you can't assume that what you're doing is exactly what someone else is doing, but that doesn't make either one right or wrong, per se. Broadcast mode isn't what I would do myself because I like to talk to people and I like to engage with people on my posts, but that doesn't mean that, maybe for other people they're just not comfortable doing that, or maybe they don't have time to do that. But yeah, you have to do what's right for you as far as engaging with people on their posts, but you can't assume and expect that people are always going to respond, but it's really nice when they do.
Right, but that's where you get a premium, of course, on saying something that's of much more value to the person, right?
Right. Relevant and interesting. Like Rand Fishkin, for example, posted something that was excellent. I mean, shocking surprise. He posted something brilliant. But I had a question about it because I wasn't sure what I do on that, and asked you because he's super busy. I can't assume that Rand is he doesn't know me. Like, I can't assume he's just gonna drop everything and answer my question. Is it awesome if he does? Absolutely. I did ask you though because you were like in the conversation and I knew that you probably knew what he meant. And he did actually respond maybe a week and a half later, but he's busy. So was I offended that he didn't answer? No. Was I happy when he did answer? Absolutely. Did I meet him in person and say, "Yay, I just asked you a question the other day. I was so happy that you answered"? Sure, I told him. I mean, whatever, he's awesome. So sometimes you can't place your own expectations on other people, but if they respond positively, it's awesome. That's a networking thing. Sure, I was dorky when I met him. I was like, I just watched his presentation, and he was really awesome. So, it's okay to be a fangirl sometimes. But
sure, or a fanboy, as the case may be.
Or fanboy, but you don't have to suck up. Is my point. I don't like sucking up, and I don't suck up, but I do like to appreciate people when they share awesome stuff. Like, I love Whiteboard Friday. You've done a Whiteboard Friday, right? I've
done a few of them by now, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like, that's like a little dream. I would never be invited to do that, but that would be a total dream thing for me. If I'm ever on Whiteboard Friday, I'll be like, ah! So you can have hopes and wishes for your networking, like things like that. Like, maybe at one point you were hoping you'd be on there, right? I mean, were you a fan of it for a long time before you did it?
Yeah, actually, I knew Rand probably right as that was starting up.
Yeah.
And he ended up being a co-author on that book with me. So
explain your networking thing then, because you kind of interestingly had a sort of similar path of knowing somebody and then writing a book with them. So, like, you talk about a similar topic, obviously.
So yeah, it's true. I mean, we both talk a lot about search and SEO and search marketing, and kind of the way things started with Rand is, even though, I do have a brash side about me at times, right? And
I haven't seen that yet. I'll look for that.
Yeah, and I, was very, focused. I wanted to see if I could. There was a number of people I wanted to see if I could get engaged with, and I started, commenting on things and adding value to their posts and interacting with them. And at one point, I shared an article with Rand, because I got his email address, and then he didn't have time, so he didn't do anything with it. And
now, were you sending it to him because you thought he might share it for you? Or you just
yeah,
wanted
of
him to
course, I
read
was
it?
hoping
Or?
he would. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I was probably being a little too direct, right?
There
And
are some people that like that method. That's not mine either, but I don't do that. But okay, so I just was clearing. I wanted to clarify. Okay, keep going. So you sent him something thinking
yeah,
like you wanted him to see that you talk about the same things and
yeah.
hoping he would share it.
And then then at some point, Matt Cutts actually, who I'd built something of a relationship, mentioned me. In fact, he wrote a post where he was talking about top SEO blogs for the year, and he called me the second, my blog, the second best white hat SEO blog.
That's awesome.
And so I got a mention from Matt
And
Cutts,
then
and then I
then
turned
you were
around.
like you dropped the mic. You were like done blogging.
Yeah, there you go. And then I turned around and I emailed Rand and said, "So Matt's the first major influencer to write about me. You can be the second." So that was my brash side right there.
So for a while you went the super direct route. Do you still do that?
No, not as much. I
Yeah,
really
I
don't.
think maybe when you're starting out, people try things, or
Yeah,
maybe now people know you are. But okay, so he
but the
mentioned,
rest of the story, I got to finish the
yeah,
story.
yeah.
Because kept interacting with Rand over his content, and then
Mhm.
one day he put out a post. It was a free link bait idea, and it said, "Surely someone will want to do this thing that will get 10,000 views and 1,000 links, and what somebody ought to do is a study running a whole bunch of analytics packages simultaneously against multiple websites, cataloging the results and showing how they count things differently." Hang on, I'm going to show you.
This is our commercial break,
So,
where Eric goes to get something.
yes, I spent
Here, we're back.
it was probably 1,000 hours of work for something that says this little hokey book here.
Wow.
But it's the 2007 Analytics Shootout. But what happened is I saw Rand put this post up. I was the first comment on his post. I said, "You got it. I'll take it. I'm doing it."
Awesome.
And it was probably literally about 1,000 hours of work. Not all my work, but it was a huge project.
Mm-hmm.
But what it did is that's when I really got on the map. It was a very opportunistic thing. And this is more the way I am now about it, Peg, is just gotten, I hope, really good at recognizing those kinds of opportunities and then taking a truck and driving through the door with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very effective way to accelerate a relationship, because after I did this, and Rand kind of followed the process the whole time through, I had his attention for real at that point. And it stood out, and I became somebody different in his eyes at that point. And not long after that, I had some other things happen, but that helped with that. And but it all started with that moment of opportunity. And this is one of the big things I wanted to bring out for people today, is knowing how to recognize an opportunity and running with it.
And addressing it in the right way, which you did perfectly. Like, you tried to connect with him by email, didn't really work for to send him a posting. You proved yourself to him by taking his project and doing it. I think sometimes when you're new and starting out, you do have to sometimes you have to make those opportunities for yourself. Like, he was throwing that out. He maybe didn't think anybody would actually do it. He was just kind of like, this would be awesome if someone did that. And you were like, I'm awesome, I'll do it. You stepped up to the plate and did it. So sometimes, yeah, you do have to prove yourself. I mean, I would say it's kind of the same with Guy, because we were working on, I was working with stuff on him, and then I would start sending suggestions for stuff, and then I was like, you should be doing this, and it kind of evolved over time. Sometimes you do have to it is kind of proving yourself. And when you're new, you know, and you're trying to, it's hard not to get intimidated when you have like no followers. I actually wrote in What the Plus, I wrote the chapter on like how to be a little fish in a big pond, because, you know, you do feel like that when you start out and you don't have any followers. You have 100 followers, and, you know, you see people with big blogs and, you know, tens of thousands of followers, and you're like, why should I even try? Because, you know, I'll never catch up to that person. And the reality is you don't have to catch up to that person, and you don't have to be the next Rand Fishkin or the next Guy Kawasaki. You could be the next Eric and Peg. You should be yourself and be awesome and learn from experts in your field. And that's what networking is about. I mean, because the bottom line for me is always, you do have to do everything yourself. Like, it was great that Rand recognized you, and great that and now you wrote the book with him. You did like all these other things, but the reality of it is you did all of it. You did all the work. You did all the research. You did the 1,000 hours. You compiled it. You did it. You actually made it happen. It's not because of Rand, really. It's because of you. So, like, my secret to networking is, like, you really have to still do all the work. You know, Guy could mention me all the time. It really doesn't get me any followers. You know, working with him, you know, maybe people might know my name, but if they went to my profile and I had nothing there, no posts, no content, if my blog was vacant and empty and I never wrote anything, it wouldn't matter who mentioned you, you know? It's still up to you to do all the hard work. Networking does help more people. When you have relationships with people, more people will see your content, but it's still up to you to do the work. So
yeah, no, it's absolutely
networking
true.
doesn't shortcut you to some fast track. You still have to do hard work and get there. The other key is you really don't need a huge amount of people in your direct network. That's the thing I think a lot of people don't realize, is you don't need a huge network of people to have even your blog be successful. Do you agree with that, Eric?
Yeah, no, you don't. I mean, a lot of times, I mean, look, Google Plus, we have the suggested user list, right? And it gets you a huge amount of followers. You know, a very large percentage of those aren't particularly relevant.
Right.
Because
it doesn't help your post do any better, and it doesn't help the engagement on your post at all.
Right, and the relationships that matter are the things that will still end up driving that engagement, and
right.
You can't lose focus like that. You know, just an interesting related story. Last Tuesday, 6 days ago, pushed a study out on a post on the Stone Temple blog that talked about the comparison between Google Now, Cortana from Microsoft, and Siri in their ability to put knowledge boxes up. The post went viral in a major way. We were in the top 10 on Hacker News, #1 spot on Tech Meme for a while, covered in HuffPo, NBC News. It made radio stations. All kinds of stuff happened. The video we pushed in combination with it has over 120,000 views. So you have all this stuff happen, and the reason why I'm bringing that out is yesterday, at an internal meeting, I threw out the idea, well, one of the things that people critiqued about it is that we didn't do a personal assistant comparison. And, you know, yeah, we should go do that because people would love to have that. And then, you know, I was, you know, reminded by a couple of my coworkers that, well, we're not really in the personal assistant business, Eric. That doesn't really relate to what Stone Temple does, and that's probably a bad idea. And I was like, you know, you guys are right. So sometimes opportunism can cause you to lose your focus, and you really don't want to do that. You have to make sure you stay, you know, kind of in your realm. I mean, look, I'm going to put out posts about Teslas and my kid having gotten his Eagle badge. I'm not talking about that, but I mean,
yeah,
you know,
well, that's still part of your focus. That's things you're interested in.
Yeah, but you know, you don't do it just to play to the audience. If you're really going to build the right kind of relationships, you have to stay, I think, within yourself, and that's really important because otherwise, you're not the following, and hence the relationships you're getting out of that following, won't be on the basis where you really kind of need it to be.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Do we have any questions?
We do. I'm going to fire one up from Paolo Fabrizio here. Paolo, I apologize if I mispronounced your name. So he's going back to what you said about not being able to respond to everybody, but the fact that you're out there doing as much as you possibly can really still matters.
I agree. I try to respond to everybody. If I miss someone, I'm sorry, but you know, you can only do as much as you can do. You know, I think not trying at all does show you kind of don't care.
Yeah, no, it does. I think it's really important. And I know sometimes I get frustrated because I wish I had more time, right? And it isn't just responding to the questions that I get, but it's like seeing a discussion going on and feeling like, oh, I'd love to like throw some thoughts in there and participate, and knowing that, you know, each of those takes a chunk of time and not really being able to do it, and it's like, oh, you know, you just wish you could do that, but you end up being forced, all of us, no matter how much activity we have, forced to be selective in one way or another.
Yeah.
You know, you can't really worry that much about it, but to Paulo's question, you know, do what you can and show that you have that interest in being engaged and participating, and that goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Okay.
When I first started on Twitter, I used to send a direct message to every single person that followed me because I was like so happy that anyone followed me. You know, like your first, and people were like, people thought that they were actually like the autos direct spam things, because I was sending like a nice little like, thanks so much, it's great to connect, and people were like, people hate those automatic messages, and I didn't even know what they were or how to do them. I stopped doing it because people thought that they weren't real. Like they were like, why would someone say thanks? But you know, it's one of those networking things you learn. It did not work. I thought I was connecting with people, but people were like, too much. You know, you have to kind of balance it a little.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think a lot of the whole process of building relationships, right? Relationships might be, you know, a one-on-one conversation, right? That's a kind of relationship, but really you have some level of relationship with everybody that follows you, right? And that's where staying on point is so important. In fact, Gina Fidel shares a comment about what I just said about you know, about this, you know, not pulling yourself off course for sake of an opportunity that might be kind of, you know, off course for what you're really wanting to accomplish. But so not everything's a one-on-one interaction. It has to do with, you know, the effort, getting out there, trying to reply to comments, not necessarily getting them to them all, but, you know, showing that effort. Showing that you care, you know, putting out content, staying true to what you're passionate about. All these things will lead to you having the right kinds of relationships.
Which leads us to another thing we wanted to talk about, which was providing value as part of your networking, because that's what people are looking for. You know, when you're posting, you should be providing value in whatever your area of expertise is, or whatever you want to be known for. You may not be known for it now, but you want to, you know, pick. I always say like 3 seeds for your personal brand. I know that's like a cliche at this point. There's not much else to define it, but you know, I talk about social media, marketing, and writing. Those are things that I've talked about for the past, you know, 3 or 4 years now, and people know that's what I talk about. They know that's what I like. They know that's what I do. You know, it kind of, I mix in other little things that have to do with me, like taking photos and traveling and, you know, things that I like. But for the most part, I stick to those topics, and it's the same with you. You know, you talk about search and SEO, and I know if I have a question, I can ask you about it. And if you don't know, you would refer me to someone else and connect me with someone else who doesn't know the answer. Part of networking is being a resource for people that they can either come to you, or so you can, maybe send them off to a different blog. I love sharing Pinterest boards, whole boards, as a resource. Like if people say, how do I, use Twitter? I really don't get it. I have a whole board that has like Twitter tips on it, because you can't explain to anyone in an email or a tweet how to use Twitter or how to use search. It's not possible, like I can't tweet to someone, so if you want to learn how to use Twitter, so it's better to give someone a big resource that they can actually, take it and learn. And so being valuable to your network is important, providing conversation and engagement on their posts, sharing other people's content, all those things add to your, they build up your networking karma, if you want to use that term. It gives you good vibes, sharing other people's content, talking with other people, and that provides value too. Your conversation is also part of your value.
Right, so really good tip in there, is like assemble resources that you can, in your area of expertise, that you can share with people, so that when they have questions, like they ask about, well, shoot, how do I get started in Pinterest? You can point them to, a Pinterest board you have or an article you wrote. So having built those things allows you to actually do a very good way to build relationships with people and strengthen those things. Like, so-and-so came in and asked me a question, and, here's an answer. You can either do that privately or publicly or whatever, but your willingness to do those kinds of things goes a long way. And the key to that is building up those assets so that you have those shareable things that are ready to share out.
Well, I think that's one of the things that happens when you do build your area of expertise, is that people do come to you for that. I think that not having an answer would prove pretty quickly that you aren't an expert in the field. But some things you can't answer really quickly. Usually people are asking great questions that have in-depth answers that are usually a blog post explanation and sometimes people ask great questions and then I turn it into a blog post. I don't know if you've ever done that, like really in-depth answers. I have like a Twitter 201 post that I wrote that was all questions from one person, because she kind of got the basics and she was like, I just don't get what comes next. Like, what do I do with, knowing how to use an at mention and a hashtag? And so I was like, what, just send me all your questions. I will write one big long blog post, and it helped her a lot. So you can either create the assets or compile assets from other people, but it's part of the learning process for me, is reading books, reading other people's content, and learning. So if it's good, I save it so I can share it with other people. Like I'll give a book recommendation, or blog posts, one blog post, or sometimes a whole board. Depends on how much information there is and what they're asking, really.
Yeah, no, totally. I think this is, I think, really part of how you use content, in your overall strategy. And this is something I know that you think a lot about. And it's like, okay, now that I know that I want to be about this topic area, what are the pieces that I'm going to put together that reinforce that? You can think about it like building a brand, right? And okay, I don't want to get into anybody getting hung up about anybody calling themselves a brand. I'm not talking about that, but because I'm certainly not doing that. But the concepts are still the same.
That's what happens when you're online, though. You are developing a brand, whether people like it or not. It's what people see of you and who you are. It's not really a brand. You're just you. You still are just you. It's not like you're going to turn into Madonna or Oprah, but you will be Eric. So, it's just kind of who you are. It's just an online term. People do get stuck on some terms, but there's limited ways to explain things sometimes.
Yes, there is. So, how do you think about monitoring things. I mean, what works, what didn't work, what do you do about it? Have you
monitoring my networking?
Yeah, like just you do some things and you learn kind of what works and what doesn't.
I think one of the things that I do personally is I'm usually just like filling up the karma bank of I share other people's stuff all the time, and I'm not somebody who asks people to share my content, or my theory is that if I share other people's content and write good content on my own, that people will find it and share it. I kind of go with a reciprocity thing. I never expect that anybody else is going to share my content. It's great when they do, but that doesn't mean that they have to. I don't do things because I expect something from someone else in any instance. When I do have something like, say for example, like the Hangout that I'm sharing today, I'm just putting it out there. If you want to come, that's great. We'd love to have you, join the community of conversation on that event page. But I don't send it to people and ask them to share it. I never did the thing like you did with it, like sending a blog post to people. There are people who like to do that, though. So I think it's kind of like finding what you're comfortable with. And for me, the thing I'm most comfortable with is kind of building up the reciprocity and liking other people's content, sharing other people's content, whether it's like pinning it on Pinterest so my Pinterest people see it, or tweeting it, or like whatever network I share it on.
Yep.
I think that I think people notice when you share their content. So does that mean that they have to immediately go share something of mine? No. Will they eventually think, well, will they look at your content? I do think they do. So that's kind of how the little path that I take, that I feel most comfortable with. I feel like I have to do all the work myself, and I try to share other people's content to build up my network. That's how if that makes sense.
Sure.
How do you do it?
And a comment that I want to put out here from John. I'm definitely Chevaltal. I make an effort to plus mention a new follower privately and include a comment, if possible, about the person's interest, especially if they share my interests. I make an effort to personalize the thank you. So that's a great way to start a dialogue with somebody, or make them feel connected with you when they follow you, John. So that's I think a good way to go about things. The challenge, of course, is as your following grows, then that might get more complicated. But certainly in the early going, that's probably a very smart thing to do, because you can afford. I mean, ideally, we'd love to be able to invest in every potential relationship.
Right.
Doesn't always work that way, though.
I do like to use ripples, actually. Is one thing I love on Google+. I love to, when people have shared a post, I like to view the ripples and see the other conversations that rippled off the main post and thank the person for sharing it and see what other conversations, because it's interesting, sometimes there'll be like 4 conversations going on really about the same post, and sometimes they're totally different, so it's interesting.
Yeah,
So ripples are a great way to like find people who are talking about you or your content.
And yeah, and seeing who's creating the most dialogue about it too, which is ripples are really good for that. Kristen Drysdale, one of my favorite people here on Google Plus, shares this comment: the very best, I think, at getting to know each new follower is Jason Weiser. Man, is he about the personal touch. I don't think one person goes unnoticed or unappreciated. Again, sort of back to that same theme of engagement. So that's that's great. Great stuff.
And it's nice that Jason does. I agree. He does do that. He's great.
Yeah, and just going to throw up a comment here from Denver Prophet Jr. Being able to talk to others in a wide array of topics is intellectually stimulating. So this actually brings up sort of another theme. Yes, you're known for something, but it's a really good idea to not be one-dimensional. And it's funny because sometimes I find that I'll share some. I mean, I shared a post, a very simple post, landing just arrived in Las Vegas for PubCon, and it was just a picture of the airport, out the airplane window. And there's a fair amount of engagement with that post. It wasn't really a high-value content post, but
it shares a little bit about who you are and where you're going, though. It's nice. People like that. People like a personal. I try not to overdo it on Google Plus because it seems a little more Facebooky, but I do it occasionally, like you do. Where if I'm going to a conference like Inbound, I did share quite a bit of things. I mean, I saw Martha Stewart. I met Malcolm Gladwell. I was really excited about that. To me, I was like, and there was a little auto awesome that my friend Mark Ensign was taking pictures, and it auto awesomed like my 2 seconds of actually talking to Malcolm Gladwell. So that was really cool. You can't share that anywhere else but Google Plus, right? Auto awesome. For the win. So I think those kind of things add the other more human layer to me, because Google Plus is a little bit different, and I don't share all my personal stuff on Twitter either. But on Facebook I do share like whatever I want on there. So I think it does add a nice layer. I think people don't only want to hear about social media marketing. They do want to know who I am a little bit and what I think about a little bit. So you do need to think about that. You don't only want to talk about your topic, whether it's actually a funny example. I won't say who, somebody was talking about Pinterest, and so it was a tire company, and all they pinned was tires, like over and over again. Like seriously, like no one wants it. There's got to be more to you than tires. So don't be the tire person.
Yeah, you're right. We'll avoid the jokes about making you tiring. Oh, sorry, I didn't totally avoid it. But yeah, I mean, you could tell great flat tire stories, right?
It would be a good year if you did.
Oh, yeah, that was your revenge. Well done.
Let's get the puns going.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly. So I've learned to use that better as I've gotten, more time on Google Plus. I have a better balance for that now than I have historically. And
I think Hangouts add a great layer too, because obviously it's taking you from the one-dimensional avatar and text only to like an actual moving, talking person. So I think that adds a lot to Google Plus, where people get to know you in a great way, which is networking right now, and later, because it goes on YouTube and people can comment and see it there too.
Totally. So comment here from Bob Strassel Jr. You can't read the whole thing, but he thinks I think you hit on something. G Plus fosters self-discovery, and it turns out I have stuff to offer I hadn't formally even registered in myself. I think that the self-discovery of G Plus is a great way to connect with yourself and others. Peg's point about ripples is a great way to self-discover and help foster relationships. So, yeah, it kind of gets back to the same thing. And to be honest, there's a lot of people who find it easy, and that's great. There's other people where being expressive and being themselves and being out there is a lot harder. So. Mm-hmm.
I think for introverts, though, social media is great because you may not be like outgoing. Just express yourself when you feel comfortable. Engage with people when it's good for you. If it's too much, then you just take a break. You don't have to be on all the time. So I think it's actually better than in person for introverts because they truly can be themselves, whether they just want to talk to people a little bit or a lot. That's one of the reasons I like Pinterest before messaging, was that there was like no conversation there. So it was a nice break after all of the rest of social media where I could just like focus on finding some things that I liked and that I wanted to share the next day. It was a nice little quiet place. So.
Yeah, totally. Well, I got to tell you, this notion about being an introvert and doing this stuff. I mean, I just came back from PubCon in Vegas, and it was like for 6 straight days, I had to be on every waking moment, and even though I'm not the 4 in the morning person, I was averaging slightly less than 6 hours of sleep a night and zero downtime, right?
Yeah.
Tons of great things. I was part of a keynote panel that was great fun. Got to spend some FaceTime with Chris Brogan and Jay Baer. All those things were great, and lots of other great people I spent time with along the ways too. And but by the end, you are exhausted.
Mm-hmm. Even if I'm outgoing and I'm still exhausted, like after Inbound, it was the same. I was like, this was awesome. Now I just need to go back to my little quiet office for a while and, get back into my routine. And but it's great. It's great to get out there, but it's good to go home too.
Yeah, take all the shades, close it, turn off the lights, sit in the dark room. Okay, maybe not that grim, but yeah. But that was me after I got back from Vegas. But of course, we've been talking in a social media context, and you just brought it up. This notion of getting face-to-face with people is incredibly important. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter how digital we get, that is still going to be a very big part of, to me, ultimately the best way to build any relationship is get face-to-face with somebody. Mm-hmm. It's just things you can't see the same way. And a lot of the relationships I've built, it's like I've recognized that someone is at a conference and that I wanted to meet, and I've gone to the conference in order to be able to meet them and get face to face. It changes the relationship.
It definitely does. And conferences are a great way to network and a place where you can connect with influencers. I mean, it's great to just meet people, and most of them, when you meet them, they're exactly the same. Every once in a while, you'll meet someone, and they may not exactly be like their online persona, but thankfully, it's been pretty rare for me. I've met tons of people from, all different social networks in person, so it is great. That it is the thing that changes. That's the ultimate networking. When you get to that point with someone, then you're at the point where, like you and Mark, knew each other on Google Plus, and now you're working together. When you get to that next level with people, most all of my friends are on social media. Like Rebecca Radice is my best friend. We met on Facebook in a Facebook class. We've been friends for a couple years. We've seen each other in person a couple times, but we talk every single day. We're like blogging cheerleaders for each other. We bounce ideas off each other, and it's 100% online relationship, but it's been offline as well. So it's really cool. So there's a lot. Social networking can change your life if you do it the right way. It can 100% change your work life. It can, make your personal life better. It's a good thing.
Yeah, no, I know. Being on Google Plus, some of the relationships here that have made a big difference for me professionally. Mark Traphagen, first of all. Who's now our senior director of online marketing. At the moment, he's down the hall in a meeting because he's up for the week. But
awesome.
And other people who work with us that we've met online, they're just helping us with clients in specific capacities.
That's cool.
And those relationships. It was kind of like we interacted a little bit, and then it suddenly is, I actually need someone who's really plugged into that community, and I've encountered someone on Google Plus and kind of got into a little dialogue, and it worked great. So sometimes those connections don't happen the way you expect, and I think honestly, I'm involved in a number of social networks at this point, but in terms of my professional career, I was very late getting into any social network, to be honest. But for me right now, Google Plus is a much more open place to be able to form a new relationship. Mm-hmm. Twitter, the stream of things going by is so fast that even if you do a certain amount of filtering, which you ought to do. It still goes by very quickly. So, that's one of the great things that's great about this platform. But I have to put this up from Denver Prophet Jr., who's kindly emailing me a pillow because of mine. Thank you, Denver. Appreciate that. don't need the nap as badly now. I've had 4 straight nights.
I was so excited. Mark's there for the week. Woo!
So, so all that's great. I mean, so, just sort of looping back around to it, I mean, there really is no, like, fantastic magic to the relationship building thing, but I think what a lot of people, have a hard time getting to is believing that they have a lot of value to add themselves, that they can do that, and that they can engage, and it kind of comes down to get out there, start getting engaged, let self-selection help you find out who you have the best relationships with, look for opportunities, find ways to take advantage of those opportunities, and it's kind of staying on point with who you are. That's
find people who it's mutually beneficial to work with. Eric and I are an example of that, which I think we said that only in the green room. But Eric has one network and talks about one thing, and I have a different network, and us coming together in one hangout, we're like sharing each other's audiences. Essentially, I tweeted it, I shared it on Facebook, I shared it on LinkedIn, I shared it all different places on social networks. So maybe a whole bunch of my followers that didn't know Eric before now know him, and that's one of the reasons that I did the hangout, because I like Eric, I like what he does, so I want more people to know who he is. That's one of the reasons I like to do hangouts, because I have friends from other social networks that haven't really built up a lot of relationships on Google Plus yet. So I love to have people to do hangouts like with Sue Zimmerman, so she can talk about Instagram, or Cynthia Sanchez of Oh So Pinteresting. I want people on Google Plus to meet the people off Google Plus that do other things too, because that adds a lot to their whole online world, to meet other people. So that's just one of the ways I like to do it. So yeah, just find people who you can work with and that you enjoy and have fun.
It's a wonderful thing. I'm going to put up a quick comment from Layla Martin here, by the way. Thank you so much for saying that, Layla. I was glad to be of help, and glad that your penguin issues were addressed. For you non-SEO people, penguin is a Google algorithm, not an angry waterfowl at your back step demanding food.
Although essentially it's the same thing. It's just angry something.
It doesn't work out any better for you either way, I guess. So awesome. Any last comments you want to make, because we're kind of to the end of the show?
No, it was a great hangout. It was fun.
Absolutely. So we're going to call that a day for the show today. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. This has been the Digital Marketing Excellence Show. Thanks again for being with me, Peg. Always enjoy it. And we hope to see you all out there next time.